Hi everyone, we got Dr. Neel Shah today, who is a orthopedic spine surgeon specializing in minimally invasive spine surgery. Dr. Shah is on staff at NYU, but is in private practice at New York Center for Spinal Disorders, and you have locations on the Upper East Side and Flatiron. I am Dr. Matthew Rome. I am the founder of Equilibrium Physical Therapy. We are a one-on-one physical therapy practice on the Upper East Side. So today we're talking about physical therapy perspectives. We're talking about orthopedic surgical perspectives and primarily focusing on spine surgery, specifically cervical disc replacement, and cervical fusion. And we've done a couple videos now with Dr. Shah talking about the differences and the indications between cervical disc replacement and fusion. We've talked about the actual surgical procedure. We've talked about the rehab guidelines. So check out some of those other videos. But today we're talking about what questions do you ask a spine surgeon and what questions do you ask a physical therapist? Like, how do you get good care? How do you get clinical excellence? And how do you get clinical expertise and clinical experience? So we talk about experience and expertise, very different things. So, Dr. Shaw, take it away. Talk to us about your training in minimally invasive disc replacement and what a patient should ask you or any doctor when considering a disc replacement.
Yeah, I think this is a great topic. I just want to step back. I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say disinformation, but a lot of, and I've had this question asked me a lot of times. So I am an orthopedic surgeon. So I did after medical school, I did 5 years of orthopedic surgery residency. And then I did 1 year spine fellowship where I just did spine surgery. And in terms of spine surgery, a lot of the notion, and maybe this is a little bit older, but I still get this question a lot, is, well, I thought neurosurgeons did spine surgery. Historically, the way it used to work was that the neurosurgeons did a lot of the work around the nerves and the spinal cord, and the orthopedic surgeons came in to put in the hardware, like the screws, the rods, the disc replacements. But now, neurosurgeons do what the orthopedic surgeons do, and vice versa. I was lucky enough to train in Boston, where I work alongside some neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons. So I kind of learned from both. You learn very different techniques. But I think in this day and age, neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons can both do spine surgery, and they're very facile at it. We all do the same stuff. A lot of our research is now mixed. I wouldn't be surprised if, 5 or 10 years from now, there's a spine surgery, residency itself. But in terms of qualifications, the first thing you want to say is your surgeon board certified. That's it's a laborious process to get through to make sure you hit all the marks. It's something that you have to do after fellowship, while you're in your first couple of years of practice. They really look at everything in terms of not only, a written test, but you have to do an oral test where you have to present surgeries that you've done, and you get grilled pretty intensely on them. It's not a fun experience, but it's almost like a rite of passage. Board certification is really the first thing you look for. And then, fellowship training in spine surgery. There's fellowships for both neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons. And now, I'm on faculty at NYU. I work with the residents and the fellows. We have 5 amazing fellows a year at NYU that just do spine surgery. And we get a mix of neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons in our program, which I think is great. In terms of disc replacement, there really isn't a certification for disc replacement. It's just on the job training. Disc replacement is really becoming popular when I was a fellow, and I was fortunate enough to train at the New England Baptist Hospital, which is a powerhouse in spine surgery. And we did a lot of disc replacement. So I was lucky enough in its infancy to really get exposed to it. And then over the last 10 years, I've really kind of taken a liking to it and really learned a lot more about it. I'd say the majority of my practice is disc replacement. And so it is something that I do a lot. I've had complications. I know how to take care of them. And I think that's an important question to ask a surgeon as well.
Yeah, that's great. I always think of the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. Did you ever read that one?
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
book.
yeah. So it's like same thing with when you're a patient, you're looking for someone who specializes in something. Make sure they've done a ton of it. The whole premise of that book is that like people get good at something by doing a lot of it. It's not
Yeah.
that it may be circumstantial. Maybe that you did your fellowship at a place that had that did a ton of disc replacements. There's a lot of great, like, again, you always want to look for usually a fellowship trained surgeon, right? If they're doing something specialized. But like even not all fellowships are created equal, right? Some fellowships in spine may do a lot more fusions than they do disc replacements. So someone like Dr. Shah, who had access to a lot of disc replacements during fellowship and then continued on doing disc replacements throughout his career, is going to be the kind of doctor that you're going to want to consult on for disc replacements. Um,
Yeah. And to echo that, I was lucky enough, earlier in my career, I used to work in Southern California before I moved back to New York. And I worked at a practice called Disc. And they were, we probably did more disc replacements than most places in the country. And I learned a lot there as well. And really helped me push the needle for disc replacement. I've noticed there's geographic differences, right? If you go out to California, Utah, Nevada, Texas, they're doing a lot more disc replacement than they are, on the East Coast, Philadelphia, Boston, New York. And that's also very interesting as well.
Yeah, so when you're going, we talk about this in some of our other videos, but ask your doctor, like, if they're suggesting a fusion, you have to be your own advocate. Like, you can go to another doctor and get another consult and say, "Hey, what do you think? Am I a candidate for a disc replacement?" Or if someone does recommend a fusion, you could say, "Why do you think I'm not a candidate for disc replacement?" And you could even say, "Have you done a lot of disc replacement?" Like, right? You want to ask, "How many have you done?" And actually, Dr. Shah mentioned this question when we were talking before we were shooting the interview. He was like, "It's okay to ask your doctor how many surgeries, how often do you do something, right?" And because you are your own advocate, it's okay to ask your doctor these questions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. When I was first in practice, that was a tough question to answer, my first 1 or 2 years in practice. Now I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So I have a better answer to that question. But I think, in terms of what to ask your surgeon, obviously, like you said, I think a really important question is, and if you're between disc replacement or not, is how many disc replacements do you do a year, right? It's easy to say, I've done hundreds of them, but like, are you really doing them, or did you do them in fellowship, or did you do them before? And the other thing about disc replacement is like, if you're doing a lot, and I hate to say this, complications are a part of what we do. And so if a surgeon says I've never had a complication with this replacement, I'd be a little wary about that. I'm very honest. I tell my patients I've had complications. And the good thing is because I've had complications, I know what to do. And I like to look back at maybe why they had a complication, and make sure that doesn't happen again. Um, and then, in terms of why fusion versus displacement or vice versa, I think it's important to ask the surgeon why they're not a candidate for disc replacement if they're telling him that, and to see if the answer makes sense, or are they just trying to push them towards fusion because that's what they're comfortable doing. And then, there's a lot of devices on the market. I think asking the surgeon about the device and why they're using that versus another one. In my practice. There's specific devices I use kind of as my workhorse and I use it the most, but there are other devices which I will use for certain case scenarios. Some of them being, the patient just being a smaller person with smaller bones. The workhorse device that I use just may not fit that person. And so I'll use one of the devices that makes a smaller footprint or implant. So I do like to tailor the patient's anatomy and their pathology to the device that I use. And I think it's important that a surgeon kind of has that thought process or even thinks about that versus like, this is the only device I use. I use it for everyone. Because in my world, that makes me feel like they probably don't do a lot of disc replacement.
Yeah. So you mentioned that. What is the number? Like, what is what's a good number if someone says, how many disc replacements do you do in a year?
That's a great question. I think I don't think I can give you an exact answer there. Obviously, it's more than like 10 or 15. I think would be great. Practices vary. I'm a very low volume surgeon. I don't do 200 or 300 surgeries a year. I try to do somewhere between 80 to 120 surgeries a year. And I'd say, I have a little bit of a different practice because I do a lot of cervical disc replacement. I'd say about 70% of my work is cervical work rather than lumbar. And if it's a fusion or disc replacement, I'd say about 90% of them are disc replacements. So I'm probably, just doing the quick math, I'm probably doing somewhere between 40 and 60 disc replacements a year, if not more.
Yeah, that's great. So
So
you could ask both of those questions. How many do you do in a year, and what percentage of your surgeries, of your cervical surgeries, are disc replacement versus fusion? If someone's going to say, "Oh, I do like 90% fusion," it may be that they're just less comfortable doing disc replacements. And then those are the ones where you want to say, okay, well, would I also potentially be a candidate for a disc replacement? And depending on their answer, you may just want to seek an additional consult with someone like Dr. Shah, who does a ton of disc replacements. That way you can really get a feel for both. And again, some of our other videos we talk about how the candidates could overlap, what are the benefits and drawbacks of both surgeries, outcomes, rehab guidelines, and whatnot. But in terms of just the questions to ask to get you in the right direction, don't shy away from asking those questions, right?
yeah, and echoing what you said, I think second opinions, third opinions are, when it comes to your neck or your spine, I think they're huge. Even in my practice, I always urge patients to go get a second or third opinion, because I want them to feel comfortable that they're making the right choice. I do believe that like I could do the best surgery ever, but if a patient just didn't feel like they made the right decision, or it's a lot harder for them to get that full recovery, because there's a big mental component to a lot of this as well.
Yeah, totally. And then when we talk about the recovery side, the more my wheelhouse as a physical therapist. We're more of a one-on-one practice, so we have board certified clinicians in private rooms and longer sessions and whatnot. There's no right or wrong to physical therapy, but you have it's more of a corporate bureaucratic insurance machine. Now that you have to follow some of your, in-network models versus out-of-network models, you may get high volume, you may get aides and trainers focusing on your care rather than individual one-on-one attention to your clinician. And so that's really important in the rehab process too. So ask your physical therapist when you call the physical therapy clinic, say, ask about our board certifications. We have an OCS, which is a board certified orthopedic specialist. So you want to look for those. Those are postgraduate certifications that only really usually passionate and skilled physical therapists obtain. And then you could ask like, how are your appointments scheduled? Are you one-on-one? How long are my appointment times? Are they 20 minutes and you have aides and trainers, or do you have 45 minutes or an hour one-on-one with a clinician? Does my clinician have a board certification? How often do you rehab cervical disc replacements versus fusions? Just ask a lot of those questions. Be your own advocate because you want to get good surgical care, you want to get good post-operative care on both sides, and it's all about asking questions.
I totally agree. I've definitely met physical therapists, and it's interesting, like kind of going back to the regionality thing in New York, it just has it's starting to get a little bit more popular. But when I was in California, patients would come in being like, I only want a disc replacement. Here in New York, I'm like, hey, let's do a disc replacement. They're like, what's that? I was told I needed a fusion. And so similarly, I've talked to some physical therapists here, and they're like a little concerned as to how to rehab a disc replacement versus, when we met, I could instantly tell you, like, I'm like, this guy knows disc replacement. And so I think it's really important to find a physical therapist that kind of understands what you're going through, and some of the new technology. And then again, like, clinicians are willing and open to speak to one another. Like Matt and I will definitely talk about patients all the time. And I think that's great for patients because they're little nuances that you can kind of talk about and kind of help the recovery.
Yeah, totally. I really appreciate that. And like, when we as clinicians, it's important for us to really communicate with each other. So, um, we love it when patients are their own advocate because we encourage that. So we encourage patients to advocate that their clinicians speak to each other because sometimes, clinicians can get really busy too. So we always, in more of the lower volume practices, they give a lot more attention, like Dr. Shaw's. I'm in my practice is more of an out of network boutique model, which has a different level of care and attention. We always find time to communicate with our referral sources and our surgeons and make sure that we manage care really appropriately. But sometimes in the higher volume models, right, where you're going to see a physical therapist working with 2 to 3 patients at once, and it's like they're going to be so busy, and you have to be your own advocate and ask those questions. Ask your physical therapist questions, ask your surgeon questions, and then ask your physical therapist to speak to your surgeon. Like it is really important that sometimes you are the facilitator of connecting your medical team, which is unfortunately how it just has to be sometimes.
I know corporate medicine. I mean, there's similarities on both of our sides, right? Like same thing with, some of the surgeons that work with these big corporate models where, they're seeing 30 patients a day. Unfortunately, the patient may get a minute or two with the surgeon, and the PA or the nurse practitioner is really doing a lot of the work. Again, I think at that, if unfortunate, not unfortunate, but if the patient is not in that setting, they probably, need to really be their own advocate versus coming to an out-of-network surgeon, where I don't see a lot of patients a day, and I'll spend a full hour or two with you and answer any and all questions you have. I think if the patient feels comfortable with that, that's probably a better way to go.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Any closing thoughts? I think pretty much covered all the good stuff in terms of like, yeah, asking questions, being an advocate. So
Yeah, I think if patients are indicated for a fusion, they should really consider and rule out disc replacement before jumping into the fusion. And I always advocate for my patients. It's like always make sure you can't get a disc replacement over a fusion, both in the neck and the lumbar spine, which we'll talk about next.
yeah, yeah, totally. And the lumbar is a really hot topic too. So I know we focus mostly on cervical. But yeah, we'll definitely cover that and check out some of the other videos that we've done with Dr. Shah about, surgical procedures and the actual the indications and the rehab guidelines are all really good content. And I'll put Dr. Shah's info below, but you can find him at NYU and at private practice at New York Spinal Disorders. He's got offices in Flatiron and on the Upper East Side. So um, really lucky to have him in New York. And thanks for so much for spending time with me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye bye.